Hi everyone and welcome back to the Shack. If you've watched the episode where we investigated the Atari ST and its intertwined history with the Commodore Amiga, you'll recall that that battle hinged around the ownership of a chipset called Lorraine, designed by the legendary Jay Miner, who also designed the custom chips in the Atari VCS console. That battle ultimately decided whether Commodore or Atari would get to incorporate the Lorraine chipset into its architecture. Of course, we all know now that Commodore won out in that battle, and the Commodore Amiga has gone down in history as one of the truly great machines of the 16-bit era, with its amazing custom graphics and sound, giving us some fantastic games and incredible productivity software. Atari were forced into releasing the ST without those additional custom chips, and with graphics and sound both playing second fiddle to the Amiga, the ST was always seen as a lesser machine. Despite this, the ST went on to considerable success, carving a niche in the music industry, owing mainly to its built-in MIDI ports, and I myself was very proud to own one. The Amiga though wasn't without issues. Its Workbench GUI was a very slow interface in its early incarnations, and the machine itself was susceptible to the odd guru meditation error. The Atari's inbuilt GUI, GEM, was limited compared to Workbench, but it was there out of the box, so to speak, even on the entry-level home machine, the 520 ST. Turn an Amiga on and all you get is a friendly enough screen saying, "Go on then, insert a disk," where the ST would boot straight to its GEM desktop, where you could do, well, practically nothing until you inserted a disk, but there you go. And of course the addition of hard drives made both machines infinitely more usable. I did of course end up getting an Amiga as well because, well, yeah, they're awesome. Shall we have a little fun with these two? Oh, go on then. Here at the Shack, we'd like to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this video, my good friends at PCBWay. They'll be helping us out with our PCB fabrication needs and offer a very professional and high quality service for extremely reasonable prices. They can even populate your PCBs for you if you're tired of waving a hot iron around. There's a link to their website in the description where you can check out all of the amazing services they offer. Now back to the show. These two machines were, in my mind, the spiritual successors of the Spectrum and Commodore 64 from my 8-bit school playground battles. When I got my ST, like my Spectrum, it didn't have fancy custom chips to wow and amaze. It took good programmers and good game design to really bring out the best in the machine. The Amiga had all the fancy sound samples, the blitter and copper effects that, if companies chose, could make their versions of popular games look and sound much better than the ST. Unfortunately, a lot of companies developed down to the level of the ST or just ported them across and added small flourishes to their Amiga versions. Other companies started with the Amiga and then had to trim back for the ST version. In purely 3D games, where the Amiga had no custom hardware to help, the ST won out owing to a slightly higher clock speed of its Motorola 68000 to that of the same chip in the Amiga. Both Commodore and Atari released updates to their 68000 model range during their lifetime, and if we were to assume that by the time each company got to their final model in the architecture range, they'd given it their best, I thought it would be interesting to see how the tail of the tape had ended up. Commodore's final 68000 based Amiga was this Amiga 600, which we've just finished refurbishing on the channel and doing a few little upgrades along the way. Atari's final 68000 based ST was the 1040 STE, one of which was donated to the Shack by Phil a little while ago, and it's in really nice condition, everything checked out, and whilst this will be getting a full strip down and refurbished very soon, it's in perfectly good shape for the purpose of this episode, and it's also got a 4MB upgrade installed to bring it more in line with our A600, which, if you remember, has 4MB fast RAM and 2MB of chip RAM. In order to make this a fairer comparison of these machines in their final states, and do remember that the A600 came out fully 3 years after the 1989 release of the STE, there are a couple of small upgrades we still need to do to both of them. First up, it's the Atari 1040 STE, and for this machine it's a simple case of installing a Gotek Drive, as we have in the Amiga, and bringing the operating system up to the latest official release for this model, which was TOS 2.06, released on the 14th of November 1991, and the last TOS version for ST and STE computers. and it had support for higher resolutions and higher density discs, etc, etc. Now, as the case for the 1040 STE is the same as the case for the 520 STFM that we refurbished earlier in the year, we can use exactly the same Gotek Caddy design we used last time. It's a really simple installation, and all the details for how can be seen in the 520 STFM video. There's a link on the screen if you want to watch that. The ROM upgrade is simple enough. There are two ROM sockets, conveniently called high and low, and you just pop out the existing ROM chips and pop in the new ones. The ones labelled high go in, well, I'm sure we can all figure out this fiendish puzzle. Now, it's worth pointing out that not all STs are built the same. Some ROMs are 28-pin chips, some are 32-pin, and it's worth checking in your own particular case what you need to do with the W102, 103 and 104 switches. These are 0 ohm resistors, so you could replace these with jumpers if you want, and that's if you want a reversible job. There's a link in the description with some really useful information if you're doing this yourself. On this machine, these new ROMs look like a drop-in replacement, so we'll just do that. Using the right tool for the job, of course, we'll take out each ROM in turn and pop in the new one. After that, booting up the machine gives us this friendly, helpful and long memory test, proving that we've updated the ROM OK before booting it into our newly updated desktop. Can't you tell the difference? Oh, nor me. Right, next for the Amiga, and as programs can be a bit finicky on which version of the Kickstart ROM they'll run on, I've decided to pop in this switchable ROM that brings the machine up to Kickstart 3.1, allowing me to install later workbenches, but it's got a little switch, look, and if I turn the machine off, flick that switch and power back on again, it's back to Kickstart 1.3. Perfect for those older, complainy type games, or at least that's the plan. Again, it's a matter of opening up the machine, popping out the old Kickstart and popping in the new one. I need to run the cable for the switch to somewhere but don't want to drill holes in the case, so this looks like a great spot next to the OLED display on the Gotek cradle. We'll just drill a hole, pop the switch through and then screw the nut on to hold it in place. We'll just pop these cables over here out of the way. Quick test, yep, there's Kickstart 1.3. Power off and flick the switch. Power back on and boot up. With the new ROM installed, it's time to install Workbench 3.1, which is a simple matter of downloading all of the Workbench disks, putting them on the Gotek Drive and then assigning them in the disk manager. Boot up from the hard disk, select the Workbench 3.1 install disk from the Gotek and then follow the on-screen instructions. I've also added in this PCMCIA card, which will allow me to transfer files to and from the Amiga and PC very quickly. There's a link in the description for full details on how to do that. It's extremely simple. And I think we're all done with this machine too. So let's run down our tail of the tape for these two and see where our upgrades have left us in numbers and figures. So we'll be parking this Amiga to the side of the road for the next couple of weeks whilst I bring this STE up to the same cosmetic level, and then I want a showdown and I need your help for that. While I get on with the refurbishment of this STE and sort out a modern hard disk replacement, the one that Phil donated with this STE is so interesting it's going to get its own episode at some point. I want you guys to tell me in the comments, in your opinion, what are the absolute best games for both of these machines. I want you to be suggesting games for the STE that make Amiga owners nod grudgingly in respect, and I want games for the Amiga that make ST owners look to the floor in resignation. Remember, for this showdown it needs to be games running from floppy disks and that run on these machines as they currently are, with the specs we went through earlier. Those specs are in the description too. Please put #showdown in your comment, and your suggestions must be in by 10 o'clock GMT, Friday the 9th of June. That's 10 o'clock PM. As always, thanks for watching, and if you like the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications of new content. If you're a regular viewer but don't subscribe, please consider doing so, as it helps the gods of YouTube to notice the channel and promote it effectively. If you'd like to support the channel, there are a couple of ways. You can hit the join button to find out about memberships, or you can click the Ko-Fi link on the channel banner to donate the equivalent of a cup of joe. Thanks for watching, and until next time in the shack, it's goodbye from me.